Kia ora and welcome to the Baptist People podcast, where we shine a light on some of the interesting, motivated and dedicated people from our faith community. I'm Christine Stride, and today I'm talking to Joe Hood. In 1990, Joe founded Mainly Music, a program for babies and preschoolers and their caregivers, which was run by churches. Joe is now the visionary of Mainly Ministries, the umbrella brand for a number of different programs. Mainly Ministries provides the framework and resources for churches to engage with their communities and share the gospel via music, play and storytelling sessions for babies, young children and their parents or caregivers. Joe moved to Australia in 2005 and she's talking to us from her home in Melbourne. Kia ora, Joe. How are you?
Kia ora. I'm pumped, actually.
Good. I'm glad you're pumped, Joe. So am I. So you call Australia home now?
No, I do not.
Oh, secretly glad. Second home, maybe?
Yeah, it's the place I live.
Okay. So is there anything you miss about New Zealand?
Oh, I miss everything. I miss the people. I miss the greenery. Australia doesn't have greenery. Well, it sort of does when you get down to Tasmania because they have punga and ferns and more green. But yeah, I miss Māori, Pacific Islander. I miss all the artwork along the side of the motorways. Just lots and lots of, I miss the language, hearing reo during the day, like we speak a little bit of it here because there's a few New Zealanders on staff here at Mainly Ministries.
How often do you come back to New Zealand and what brings you back?
Yeah, Mainly Ministries brings me back and then catching up with family. But these days after the COVID, I only travel back 2 times a year. This year I might end up 3 because we're so used to doing things online. So you can do some stuff face-to-face and then continue it online.
Yeah. It changed everything, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Joe, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? You grew up in a Baptist church, didn't you?
Yes, I was actually dedicated at what was Valley Road Baptist. And then my parents built in Hillsborough out near Waikowhai. And Hillsborough Baptist was a daughter church or a planted church from Valley Road Baptist. And so I went there from the time I was 9 months old until I moved to Melbourne in 2005.
What are some of your memories of church as a child?
Fun.
Good.
Yeah. Family. By the time we'd left, we had 3 generations there. My parents, Stephen and I, and my kids, and my brother and sister, and their whānau as well. It was friendship. So when I go back to New Zealand, I catch up with so many people that have been lifelong friends from Hillsborough days. Not necessarily from youth, more from young adult age onwards.
So, and were your parents involved in the church?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Dad was church secretary for a long time. Dad was the architect of the rebuild for Hillsborough Baptist. Dad, in his day, has his name on the plans of lots of Baptist churches in New Zealand.
And your mum, did she get involved?
Yes, Mum ran the Girls' Brigade.
Right.
So, yeah. And then I was involved in Sunday school. I used to do the preschool Sunday school virtually on my own with a couple of, as a teenager. Then because I'm a driven person with outcomes and things, I'm more than happy to be around people, but I also like to get things done. So I didn't participate in youth a whole lot until I was towards the end of school, or even after I left school. I took on the Saturday night youth. I didn't feel like I was spiritual enough to do anything around the Sunday mornings, so I used to do the event planning, and every Saturday night have the badge of honour of taking who were organising 120 young people to the snow. We used to do a snow trip every year. So we had everybody assigned to buses, and I told everybody, that is the bus you have to go down on and come back on, so do not fall in love with anybody from another bus because you will not be allowed to change buses.
That's no small feat, 120.
I know, we got them all back too, which was pretty exciting.
On the right buses.
Yeah.
So you sound pretty driven, as you've said. What were you like at school? I mean, were you the kid with the side hustle on homework or something?
No, not on homework. In what was standard 3, I think it's year 5 now, I used to run what I realise now is a bit of a charity, because it never we never had any money changing hands, but we had a teacher who used to give out lines. It'll be 100 lines of blah, blah. But he had his favourite lines, and so I used to run a little business of others would write the lines, and then those who contributed to writing the lines, and I think I probably gave them to other kids as well. If he said 100 lines, I'd find 80 in the plastic bags in the cupboard, give them out, and then they only had to write another 20.
That is very entrepreneurial. Yes, I am. But not so successful, you think?
No, not from a monetary point of view.
And what about your musical background? Can you tell me a wee bit about it? You learned a couple of instruments.
I did. I taught myself the recorder watching a friend who was having lessons when I was 6. And then went to lessons myself because Mum and Dad, I think, realised that I had a bit of a bent. Then I learnt the clarinet, and I played third clarinetist in the Auckland Youth Symphonic Band. We travelled all the way to the Christchurch Town Hall and did quite a few things along the way. And I taught myself the piano, but then had lessons, mostly with lovely Catholic nun up in Pa Homestead on Hillsborough Road, who every now and again rapped me over the knuckles with a ruler, but boy, it kept me practicing. As I was always a bit scared of the wrath that I might experience, but I loved piano, and I knew her heart. I knew her heart was for me to be better at what I was doing. So, yeah, I don't come away with any scars.
That's good, yeah. And do you still play anything?
Oh, no, not really. I do have a keyboard at my house, but with the speed at which mainly Ministries happens and with people's lives I like to keep in touch with, I'm not very good at sitting down and chilling out on the piano.
I mean, because I used to learn the piano, and it's always been a regret that I stopped getting it, the habit of just playing. Yeah. So maybe it didn't mean that much to me, but now I look back as my daughters are playing and I think, oh, what a great way to chill out, to get your head in a different space. There's still time.
Yes, there is. There is.
So would the 10-year-old Jo, 9-year-old, or however old you are at year 5, would she recognise you now?
I think so. Because of my engagement with others. So in year 6, standard 4, there was a boy who, like, not only the lines business that was really just a charity, I was very aware of others. Looking back, I had a reasonable EQ, and I noticed this boy who was on the sideline, and so I arranged to have him over one day after school for a play date. And it came back through his mother that was really significant for him. He was not liked by the other children in the class.
So that was quite brave of you.
Yeah, it was brave and a bit cringe-worthy as well, because I made him bob down in the car on the way home so that nobody knew that he was coming home to my place to play, which, looking back, I'm like, oh my goodness, that's revolting.
I'm sure he understood. It's that age, of embarrassment.
Yes. And I was a bit the same at Epsom Girls. There was a girl that was at the boarding school there who had no social skills and very few friends, and so invited her home for dinner at Mum and Dad's. Mum and Dad were, and still are, very hospitable people.
Mm-hmm.
They gave us a legacy of hospitality. They're still alive, but their legacy of hospitality is, despite the fact that we all had to have the house very tidy because we were having visitors, but they always threw their doors open. Like, incredible.
Which is the gospel, really.
Yes,
isn't
it
it?
is.
Just, invite
Yeah.
people in. Yeah. So you've managed to bring together faith, music, and entrepreneurship into your career, which sounds like your dream job. Would that be about right?
It is my dream job. Yes.
Where do you see Mainly Ministries in the next 5-10 years? Is there a 5-10 year plan?
Yeah, there is. There is. Hopefully we will be able to expand into Canada. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually also thinking Singapore. That's also in my horizon. Before I hang up my hat and say, I won't be retiring, but I will be handing the reins over. Like, I don't want, I'm very aware of founders syndrome, so I don't want that to happen to me. I want to get out before then. There are lots of other things I would like to achieve before that time. And two of them are potentially going to Canada and Singapore.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They're Commonwealth countries. They speak English. There's a connection there. Yeah.
There's probably a fair amount of Kiwis actually in Singapore as well.
It could be. Could be too. Yes. My daughter-in-law is from Canada, so I traveled there. And pre-COVID, we had 4 groups. Now we've got 2 groups. They're completely new ones. And in fact, the team leader of one of the Canadian groups emailed me and another staff member the other day, and they've been going less than 6 months. And she said, this is the highlight of my week. And already we are having faith conversations with people from the community. So in 6 months, they must be doing a really good job of being really aware of their faith and how it impacts others, and making it available, and inviting people to have these sorts of conversations. And Mainly Music just sets all that up. It's not pushy, it's not in your face, but it's there so that the Holy Spirit can use it as a catalyst for conversations.
So, because I jumped ahead a wee bit there, can you tell me a bit about Mainly Ministries? I mean, it's a worldwide organisation. So how does it work? Who funds you? Who comes along?
Sure. So Mainly Ministries is our newest brand. It started in late 2020 when we needed to put together a new website for Mainly Music and Mainly Play. And realizing that our communication to communities of faith was quite difficult using the Mainly Music brand, because the Mainly Music brand is really for the general public. It's for families with preschoolers who are trying to find where their local group is and access some of the product. And so Mainly Ministries carries a unique offering that we describe as Together, Creating Joy-Filled Communities of Belonging where Jesus can be revealed. Mainly Music is a half-hour music-based group for family, whānau, and their tamariki who are not at school. And there are some God songs in there. There is the ability to have what we call a time to talk, that they can profile a parenting thought or a faith thought, and we provide the material for that. And then it's followed by Eat, Play, Chat, which is just that. The children eat and then the toys come out and there's free play time. The adults, the grown-ups eat, and then it's time for them to build community. So it's a model of social inclusion. It's a model of school readiness. It's a model of care, genuine care of whānau in the community. We started mainly play because a lot of churches were saying we like what mainly music offers as an organisation structure, putting structure around that mission model, but our people don't want to jump around like green frogs or...
Oh, what a shame.
or they don't have the technical ability to run everything. And so mainly play came into existence, and we trialled that here in Australia. And the first mainly play happened in Australia. And then during the pandemic, the NHS, the health service in the UK, ceased to put structure or support around mothers coming out of hospital with baby, both volunteer and paid-based. And so we created Mainly Babies, and that was the very first one happened in the UK. And it's basically mainly music for either not yet crawling or up to 12-month-old babies and their parental carer.
And I imagine a bit of a lifesaver for many parents and caregivers who just for half an hour at least, or however long it is, have some shoulders of, to cry on.
Yes, yeah, and support.
Ears to listen, support.
Yeah, so Mainly Babies is usually around an hour by the time you've had the music session, and then Eat, Play, Chat looks a little bit different, but it's still there. Mainly Music and Mainly Play is more like an hour and a half.
And you set up Mainly Music after you found a bit of a lack with your own daughter, is that right?
Well, I was going to a music group in Blockhouse Bay at the time at the community centre there, and it was with a friend and our two little girls, and it didn't have the social inclusion factor. It didn't have the care factor. It was purely a music group. And then that was all about to change because evangelism and family are my two bents, and I had all this music background. I said, hey, I think we could do this at church. And I think my missiology was so up the creek, but its purpose was to introduce people to Jesus. And Lindsay Jones was the minister at the time at Hillsborough Baptist, and he was on a path of really encouraging people who felt like they had something that God was, or the Holy Spirit was prompting them to get moving on. And so he gave permission. He was very permission giving and really encouraged me, and actually handed me a cassette tape, if you remember those things, of an interview with someone from, and I think she still does it actually. I met her recently at a Baptist Hui, Project Esther at Spraydon back in the day when it was called Spraydon Baptist. And that really inspired me to keep moving with establishing Mainly Music. And then Baptist churches were the most outward focused back then, and by then it would probably be 1991, 1992. And so promoted the whole concept. And then, now we're in 9 countries.
Now look at you. Yep, 9 countries. So how many staff do you have?
About 40 worldwide. All up. Everybody's part-time except for me. I'm the only full-time person. And some of those people we actually pay to take Mainly Music into places like Wiri Women's Correctional Facility. There's a mother and baby unit there. Into a residential home for mothers experiencing extreme postnatal depression, in community centres where the surrounding neighbourhood lacks early childhood engagement or facilities.
What's the feedback like? What are women, I imagine it's mostly women, saying about, or how are they responding to you coming in with the program to the prison, to those places?
Yeah, so we're in a prison up in Brisbane as well, and the response is the same in both. I'd love us to see him be in way more prisons. That would ring my bells. They see Mainly Music as a privilege because we're actually allowed in behind the wire.
Right.
It's not just in the visitor centre.
Are you the only group that's allowed
No,
behind
there are other providers. But because we've been there for a long time, we're seen as having really pushed through, particularly COVID time, and of value. There's a real value aspect to it. But the mothers themselves just love when they realise the benefit and they see their little ones delight in what's going on.
So somebody brings their little ones to them and they get to gather?
Children are in, it's low security. So in Wiri, it's a mother and baby unit. So up in Brisbane, it's a transitional prison. So it's as people are moving out into civilian life. So that the children are allowed to be there until they're 2.
Tough circumstances, yeah.
It is.
Tough for the volunteers to go in as well.
Yes, it is.
Staff, whoever they are.
Yeah.
Do they need special training?
Yes,
or anything?
we do give our supported groups, session facilitators, special training.
Do you know, Jo, of any women who have been to these sessions while in prison who have then gone on to go to sessions maybe outside or later on?
I know of two that just come to mind immediately. One lady ended up actually, funnily enough, at a Baptist church in Auckland, in Tamaki Makaurau.
Hallelujah.
And yes, she had been in Wiri. And then there was another girl who has ended up at a drug and alcohol rehabilitation centre, a residential centre. And they were telling us that they'd got the women together and said, how can we enrich the program here? And the girl said, why haven't we got Manly music? I thoroughly enjoyed that inside. Mm-hmm. Why isn't that here? And so now we are at the centre as well.
Mm-hmm. Is this a new direction, perhaps, that you are looking into? Or?
Well, no, I would just say that we have... This all happened at Kerry Baptist College, actually. I did one of Mick Duncan's papers, the Church in New Zealand Society, and realised that as an organisation we were appealing to middle class and above, and we needed to do something about families that were going through tough times. And whether those are circumstances that have been imposed upon them, whether they are decisions that they regret, whether they have been flung into it like women with postnatal depression, they all need our help and support. And so that's how that's all happened.
I mean, it sounds like you're missionaries, really, in a way, aren't you? It's like a mission.
Yes.
But Jo, how are you sharing the gospel at these sessions? I mean, what would you say to people that say there wasn't any prayer, there wasn't any God stuff? What?
Okay, so just generally in what Manly Ministries provides? Yeah, well, then they've missed the purpose. What rock have they been under? So, I struggle with that comment, and that comment has been passed on to me, so you're not the first one, right? And there's a few Baptist ministers that are advocates of what Manly Ministries provides, and they will also stand up to that sort of comment, because the whole purpose is to engage the community with the local community of faith, the local church plant, wherever we find ourselves. So as followers of Jesus, we should be missionaries wherever we are. So Manly Music, Manly Player, Manly Babies are mission models. And if a local church is not using them for that purpose, they have they're basically just being good, nice people doing something nice. And anybody can do that. Really, what we are providing is something that is a mission model for connection with local community.
So you don't expect people to start coming to church?
Look, it's not a church growth model. It has been. And in fact, my colleague, I'm actually not recording this from home. I'm recording this from an office. And right next door is a colleague who, when she looks around her church, everybody that is new to their church has come through the Maney Music door. Now,
Wow.
I would say that she is a bit of an evangelist. She's not afraid to speak to people about her faith, but she doesn't do it in a way that is pushy or right in your face. But she does set up, the session itself sets up conversation
Mm-hmm.
and inquiry. And people within the teams regularly talk about praying with people, answering questions, inviting people to things that are on at church that have relevance. We regularly get stories of people who have either moved up the Engel scale towards acknowledgement that Jesus is Lord, or have actually said, you know what, this Jesus I really want to follow. So what we provide is a model of mission for missionaries.
Mm-hmm.
It's just those missionaries happen to be in Aotearoa, Australia, the UK, Lebanon.
And they sing and dance and tell stories.
Yes. And share life.
Provide.
We need to be sharing life.
Is that what people are responding to? That whole conversational tone, as you say, sharing life. It's not about, okay, let me sit down and pray for you because you need Jesus in your life.
No. And so eat, play, chat, the chat part plays a significant role, especially if there's good coffee and cake. But it plays a significant role in the whole model, because that's the time that you can get to know people. But also don't just limit it to that. Meet them outside of the sessions. Meet them at the park. Invite them into your home. And in response to what is being said, offer prayer there and then. I remember one of our former board members, who was a Maney music leader at Windsor Park Baptist, standing next to somebody who just told her something quite deep. And she said, I'll pray for you. And this woman immediately dropped her head and closed her eyes. And Carolyn was like, in that moment, suddenly it was like, I'm not praying during the week, I'm praying right now. and that's what I really encourage people to do. Make prayer, like it's conversation with God. Don't make it scary. Don't make it a mystery.
Yeah.
Bring it out into the open, into the public square.
What do you see as the big issues for children and families right now?
Oh, devices.
What's wrong with devices, Jo?
They need to be very limited, and we need to follow the use of devices that Silicon Valley have, which is virtually none. Parents in Silicon Valley don't give their children.
Very strange, isn't it?
It is.
It
is. And actually, I was talking to somebody yesterday who was talking to me about how she leaves her phone at home when she goes for a walk in the morning and at night. She doesn't have children. And I was saying to her, that silence it's good to be alone with your own thoughts in your own head. Also with that is, how will the Holy Spirit break through if we've always got headphones on, if we've always plugged in, if we're always being entertained? We need that space for God to speak to us. And we need to admire what God has provided in the world he created. It's not all about stuff that's on devices. It's also being out in nature and racing around with kicking a ball. And I think the pace of life, the cost of life, the societal expectations on whānau these days are creating a pretty pressured space. I was talking to a minister just last week about how he's observed quite a number of matua, of parents saying, I don't even like my kids. Like, why did I become a parent? Yeah, that's really sad. That's really sad. If we are so focused on our lives being products of what we can do and earn and buy and produce, how will tamariki thrive? Tamariki need our time and our attention, and they need to know that they are loved and that somebody is listening to them. And that makes me sound so old and old-fashioned. And I, because my husband had a very serious accident when my kids were 5.5 and 2.5, Steve was the at-home parent for 7 years, and I had to go to work full-time. And I missed out on those interactions. And I love those times with my grandchildren now. Our children are little for such a short amount of time, and we remain matua. Like my daughter just had to put down her dog this weekend, just before the weekend, and I was saying to a colleague here, "Oh, you don't stop being a parent just because they're 36."
Exactly. Yeah.
You're a parent forever, so make the most of the foundational time.
Do you think kids are feeling their parents' stress as well?
Or potentially.
Are we not so good at hiding that stress anymore? Do we take it on? I don't know.
I don't know. I think I'm on a Facebook page that is mums on there, and you're only getting a written word. You're not hearing their situation. But I'm amazed at the number of mums who say, "Is this what life is all about? I just feel like I'm going from one thing to another and not really enjoying life, not really, because I'm having to work, and then I get home and I'm having to do everything that's around home life, and then the weekends are just catch up." That makes it very hard for people like Parenting Place to input into people's lives when they have such limited amounts of time with tamariki.
It's yet another thing.
Yeah, and when there is that stress on them.
Are you seeing more caregivers perhaps coming to your sessions rather than actual parents?
More grandparents, actually. So since the pandemic, there are definitely more grandparents in the mix, which is great and not so great, because if the percentage of whānau coming to sessions is too weighted to grandparents, then young mums and young dads, they're looking for friendship, they're looking for their village, for their tribe, and the village includes other generations, but it also includes peers. And so it's wonderful for the grandparents to get that that village happening for them. Yeah, I'd like it to be sort of a 60-40, but you can't manufacture these things. You've got to go with what it is.
Jo, how have you seen God at work in Mainly Ministries? Perhaps in the business side of it, to start with, for you.
Great. God is a great provider. We have a staff member here who says he owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. All we need is one for a barbecue. And so we're not asking for much. But is
that what he's saying?
Yeah, charities do live hand to mouth at times. And that impacts me as a visionary when we go through times of funding issues, because when whānau go through the door of Many Music, Many Play or Many Babies, our model is a bit like a franchise. I think we were the first ever to do the whole subscription system for churches. Like, we paved the way for that back in the day. And it's very hard for churches to see value in the intangible aspects that we provide. And we're very aware also that we want communities of faith to provide something that isn't the price of swimming lessons that only a few people can afford. Right. This is like in New Zealand, most groups would charge $5 to $6 per family per session. Like, where do you go for a whole morning with coffee and cake and educational value and everything else that goes on with at a Many Music or Many Play setting? Where do you get that for $5 to $6? So we want to make sure that the local community of faith has enough money to buy an Easter and Christmas book or celebrate Mother's Day and Father's Day. They have to do those 4 sessions. But how can they keep being generous? Generosity is one of our values. So I'm my own worst enemy, really, because I always thought that mainly ministries should operate based just only on the membership contribution. But really, we need the support of donors for more than just our supported groups. We need it for all that we are doing. Because when you're a visionary and you see that there is only so much funding coming in, you become I become very cautious about having too big a dreams. And
it must be frustrating.
It is very frustrating. Yeah. And I've only come to this whole, actually, Joe, mainly Ministries does need donors more recently. So I haven't exercised the gift of the gab and been able to talk to people about what our financial needs are until more recently.
Here's your chance.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Please talk to me.
And that's in Australian dollars?
No, New Zealand.
Okay.
Everywhere. UK.
Yeah.
Whoever's listening, we've probably got a country to plug you into.
So you lead a worldwide organisation. So what's your leadership style as visionary?
Yes.
One who gets frustrated a wee bit, perhaps. What have you learned about leadership, and what's your style?
Yes. What have I learned about leadership? Well, because I'm an entrepreneur, what comes with that is not being a very good communicator at times, because you're already there. Like, you've already visioned this, and you can't understand why people are not there with you. But people need time, and I'm not very good at that.
So you want them to be in your head already?
They do need to be in my head, but it's very chaotic in there. So I don't know that anybody else would want to stay in that space.
Perhaps have a window into your head.
My leadership style was probably a little more, not probably. It was more autocratic, just, okay, get on, do this. We're going to climb this mountain. Hurry up. Why haven't you got the pickaxes with you?
I'm just imagining you as a parent, or perhaps even in front of the mainly music. Kids.
Oh, yes. Come on. We can do this. I have become better at bringing people on for the ride. I've always been good at listening to what people are saying, because I was impacted very early on by reading a book about Walmart and how the guy at Walmart always used to walk the floor and respond to customer feedback. Entrepreneurs also don't like meetings. So it takes a little bit for me to do meetings well. But I have learnt that just by listening to people and acting on things, people don't necessarily realize that's what you're acting on. So you actually need formal meetings for the gathering of ideas. I often tell people there are those ducks. You know how back in the day people used to have 3 ducks lined up on their walls, yes. Ceramic ducks. And quite often there are ducks hovering in my head, and then somebody will make one comment and it's like, they're in the line, they're on their way. But because all that thinking has been happening in the background of my mind, I struggle. I have to really discipline myself to bring other people on board. Right during COVID, we adopted a entrepreneurial operating system. So it's a management system, EOS, and it's been the saving grace of this organisation because it has provided us structure to keep moving forward. Right. So,
a software system?
No, it's just a way of structuring your organisation, the way you do accountability, the way you do communication, the way you do your management team, the way you keep the visionary well away from all the staff, because you'll only frustrate them. So I'm pretty realistic about my shortcomings.
What helps you in the tough times, Joe? Because there must have been tough times.
Oh yeah. Well, my husband died 5 years ago. That was pretty tough. It still remains pretty tough. Yeah. It sounds like the pat answer, but it is totally my faith. It's my faith in Jesus, which just becomes stronger and stronger the older I get.
Would you call Mainly Music then a Christian organisation?
We say we're faith-based.
Faith-based?
Christian faith-based. Yeah. I mean, we're public about that. After all, it's 98% of what we do is in churches. So,
in churches,
we're partnering. We need the local church plant, the local missional community, the local Christian school for Mainly Music to operate. It's highly doubtful that supported groups would ever become bigger than our partnerships.
And I did ask you before about how God has moved in the business side of things. Do you have any other, anecdotes about when something just happened after prayer, or just you knew it was a God thing?
We 18 months ago, we were looking at reshaping one of our staff members' roles. And I was looking after supported groups for Australia as just one of the things I did, rather than a real focus on it. And we had people running sessions and pretty much winging it with occasional calls from me. And we wanted to formalise it because we have Natalie in New Zealand, who's just a powerhouse as our New Zealand supported groups manager. And so Sarah was about to change. She now lives in Launceston. She used to live in Melbourne, and was going to take on this role of supported groups manager. And we'd been talking about it as a management team. We didn't have any money for making that happen. The very next week, money came in to support her for 9 months of that role. Wow. We hadn't asked for that money. It came from a known donor. That was God. That was for the four of us on the management team. That was confirmation that what we were doing was the way forward. I was also very influenced by a book I read by Yonggi Cho, the minister of the largest church, I think in the world, but definitely in Singapore. And he established a church, and it was a book all about the way he established it. And then he had some students from a Bible college start a church and then come back to him and say, we've done everything that you have done, but our church is not big. It's not growing. And Yonggi Cho said, hold it a sec. You can't go and do something and then go, God, will you bless this? You have to go, God, what do you want me to be doing? And then there can be an expectation that God is going to bless it. And that doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be hard times. But as the founder, as the leader of this movement, I regularly ask God, should I be stepping out? Should we be closing the doors? Are you really wanting this to continue? Because it's very easy to pull stories about God moving and God at work in the organization and the movement. But that is not, there needs to be a whole lot of other things happening as well for me to be absolutely convinced that we should be doing what we're doing.
Yep.
That would be the same as saying, I believe it's the will of God for me to do this, when you've got one verse out of the bowels of Ezekiel. It's like, no. God needs to speak in a number of different ways.
So we talked about over the next few years what you want to see happening in Mainly Ministries. Joe, how can we pray for Mainly Music, for Mainly Play, and Mainly Babies?
Yeah.
How can we pray for these ministries?
Pray for two things. One is that communities of faith, so I don't want to always say church plant, missional communities and Christian schools. So we just say a community of faith. Pray that communities of faith will really lean into a posture of we are missionaries in our community. We are missionaries from the time our eyes wake up in the morning to the time we go to bed. And these models are providing us a way of engaging with our community so that Jesus might be revealed. And there are all sorts of other benefits of running Many Music, Many Play, Many Babies around school readiness, social inclusion, loneliness being averted, all those sorts of things. But ultimately, if we want to be more than just nice people doing nice things. So pray that the local communities of faith will really see and use these models of mission for their purpose. The second thing would be to pray for our supported groups, like our team. So we have a team of 2 that go into Wiri Women's. They pray beforehand and ask the Holy Spirit to direct them, and they've had chances to pray with people inside. Here in Australia, we're in a childcare. We pay somebody to go into a childcare up in a remote Queensland location. The childcare is one of 5 that are owned by a group of Christian people. The children who come along are coming from homes of chaos. They're coming because there's poverty, there is family violence, there is drug use, there is alcohol abuse. It is their shalom 5 days a week. Those supported groups are places where Jesus can be revealed. And that is, they are, you're right, they are, we are all missionaries, but they are missionaries also going out of the church building and into another space and being light and hope and salt. Pray for them too.
We'll pray for you and everyone involved in Mainly Ministries. Thanks so much for your time, Jo.
Pleasure.
I've really enjoyed talking with you.
Pleasure, Christine.
God bless. All the very best.
Thank you. I've enjoyed talking to you too. Ka kite.
Ka kite.